Transmission received.
Mysterion brings justice. You can't kill that which never dies.
Okay, welcome back everyone to another South Park Thunderstray video. Now, I've just pretty much spent like 20 minutes talking about it, and I want to try and make this video as clear as possible. So I get multiple questions each day about how do I make a deck, how do I get this to arena, and I want to make this video just to talk about, I guess, the newer people, because I kind of forget when I do these videos. A lot of people are newer, and they're not my rank. I know people are higher than me, but majority of people I think who watch it are definitely lower than me, and I guess people struggle to make a deck and trying to get a high arena. So first thing first is it all depends on what your card level is. You can use any deck in the game pretty much, and if you have them to a high level, you can do pretty good. You can use any card, right? Like you could use Mimsy and Ice Sniper Wendy, right? And if you have them to a high level, sure, it's great, but if you were to invest the actual cards and levels and stats all into other cards, you're going to be in a better place. So let's just start it because I don't want to waste too long, is how to build an actual deck. So first things first, choosing your theme. Now, I'm going to break these categories down. So I think there's 3 main themes, and why we're calling them main, you'll talk about, we'll say later on. So the first main theme, so you have to pick either between these 3, is going to be fantasy, mystical, and adventure. Now, the reason why is because they have actual removal cards. Now, removal cards is pretty much the main thing in this game that balance it out, to be fair. If you could run around with level 5 Ninju, Medusa Bebe, and if I could remove them from the game, it wouldn't be balanced. So, yeah, them 3 themes, you kind of got to choose between them 2. Oh, them 3, sorry. And when you do, make sure you have either Transmog. You could use Cock Magic, but yeah, whatever. Transmog, either that or Honorary Combustion, which is a lot better than Transmog because it just instantly deletes them and does area damage. Lightning Bolt, Fireball, and you can kind of class Arrow Storm. So yeah, either them 3, and then you could obviously, the next afterwards is your second deck or your second theme, that being either sci-fi or superheroes, or obviously one of the other 2 main themes. The reason why is because superheroes don't have any removal cards, neither does sci-fi. They only have Megatron and Poison, which you can't really rely on because, like, Stanime Moons, for example, you kind of want to take them out quick. And yeah, for example, never use superheroes and sci-fi. It's probably the worst theme in, like, the worst 2 combination of themes in the game because, yeah, you have no removal. Like, you're gonna lose a lot. Now, obviously, you have a neutral remover, that being Satan, who kind of classes as a remover because he does so much damage. You can take out most cards, I guess, but I'm not really gonna class that. Okay, and as for the best themes, this is very subjective, but I do want to talk about it. So what I did was I went through each card and said, is this a good card or a bad card? And I counted up how many good cards are in each theme, and this is the tally I got. And bear in mind, yeah, kind of subjective because there's like a 1 or 2 cards that could be classed as good, but I said it's bad. I'm not going to go through all of it because it'd be too long. But fantasy by far has the best good cards in the game, that being at 15. This is not including spells. Mystical has 10, sci-fi 11, superheroes 9, and adventures 8. Now, the reason why adventure is the lowest is because it doesn't have that many good cards. If you actually think about it, the most of the commons and rares are kind of trash in adventure. The main thing is definitely the legendaries, spells, because they have the most good spells in the game, that being free. And then also, yeah, the epics are pretty good in rares. Oh, not rares, some rares, like, you know, you can only really use a few. You get what I'm saying, right? Adventure doesn't have that many good cards if you compare it to fantasy, which has, like, mostly every card in fantasy is really good. And that's not me being biased, it's just a kind of a fact, right? Look how many good cards in fantasy compared to adventure. And yeah, I mean, you look at the list, you probably see superheroes have more good cards. Yeah, because, well, most of the superhero cards are epics, and the rares are actually kind of good. Like, look at Mosquito, Disarray, Timmy. If you compare that to, like, I guess their doggies, they don't really count. Parachute Timmy did get a buff, but he's still kind of eh. And then, yeah, look at the res. Deccan Butters. He isn't really good. Well, he's not really good. They also have Shaman Token. Once again, not really good card. And then, like, superheroes have, like, Diabetes and Tupperware, who, like, are kind of decent cards. So that's how I pretty much ranked it. And just like on the list, you're probably going to go fantasy. And does that mean Adventure's the worst theme? No, because this is basically just based on good cards. They still have, obviously, really good, great epics and legendaries. So yeah, once you decide on your 2 themes and you have your removal card in the deck, you can then start building your deck. And ideally, you want to have mostly legendaries, epics, and rares. and only a few commons. I think probably Diabetes, Robin Tweak, Labar Jimmy, probably forgetting some, I guess Terrence and Phillip if you're going to count the neutral theme. But yeah, most commons you don't want to use. Now, the reason why is because their scaling isn't too good. But what do I mean by that? So, if you don't know, you would think, right, each level gets you higher stats and higher stats and higher stats, but it's not really the case. Legendaries get most of their actual HP and big stats from level 3. Obviously, they're going to get a little bit more of an increase on level 4 and 5 and 6, but their main big stat is level 3. So that's why people always have level 3 legendaries. Like, that's like the good spot. Same for epics. They have level 4. I believe commons are level 6, level 5, and then rares, once again, level 5, level 6, around that too. So, I mean, at the end game, you want to have level 3 legendaries, level 4 epics, which to be fair aren't really too hard to get. I know probably at the start of the game it's probably a bit like 25 legendaries, but Team Wars events, even Challenger mode now guarantees you 2. You can now request epics, and yeah, overall the loot it's not too hard to get epics. Now, epics that you want, that's a different question, but you know, you can get level 4 epics pretty quick. Rares you can request. So once again, I might have said it because I've repeated myself twice and I've done 2 of these. I'm currently requesting my act level 7, and he's currently like 1000. So you know, I could have gotten multiple like fantasy cards to level 6, and it's not hard. Commons, once again, most of my cards now naturally are just getting to level 6 because I've been playing for so long. But level 5, you probably when you want to use them. Obviously, this is very subjective, and if you are low rank, you're going to be using low rank cards anyway. But yeah, ideally start going and building up towards legendaries and, well, I guess not legendaries, epics and rares. They're pretty the ones you want to do. And when you start getting legendaries, then you start using them. And to be fair, most of them, most epics or legendaries are decent level 1. Obviously, if you are versing people your rank, or if you're going to be versing people higher than you, then no, it's not. But Dragon Slayer Red is a perfect example. A card that can be used at any level. The only difference is when she does get to like around level 3, she herself is a good card rather than her just being like a summon ability that lowers attack and defense or attack and HP. Okay, so now after that's all been said, we have our, so let's say you pick the 2 themes, you have your removal or removals in your deck. Now, what do you pick? Now, I recommend, even though I don't really, no, I do it. So, ideally, you want to have around 2 range units because, I mean, a lot of people have like flying units now. There's a lot of flying units in the game. Banner car, for example. And, you know, if characters on the floor do damage to the area units, you're kind of good. Like, I use Chaos and Road Token, who can take out area units. So, I don't really have to, I sometimes only use 1. But ideally, you always want to have a Timmy in your deck. Now, the reason why is because Timmy's a slow pushing card that is just perfect in literally most themes. I think even now, Paris to Timmy. Any Timmy, just use, because you need them. They always have good abilities. They're always slow, and you start off kind of a good starting card because they take so long to get to the middle. So you have your, I guess, 1 or 2 range unit cards. Now, you obviously want to have 1 tanky boy. Now, you can go towards a tank, but most times, adults are in the game. There's a lot of adults, and they're not tanks, but it kind of class as tanks. Like, you notice in my decks, I don't use any tanks, but I do use Witch Garrison, who's a 4 cost, who has like 1.1k HP at level 6, maybe even higher. And even like Pokemon's Randy, for example, was like a 5 cost. Even though not a tank, you want to have probably either a tank, so a Cartman, or an adult in your theme or your deck to basically just absorb a load of damage and for you to kind of stall. And the next part, obviously, we have some assassins and some fighters. So you have, yeah, your tank, you have your range units, you have your removal. The next 2 cards left is pretty much assassins and fighters. Now, ideally, you would have more fighters than assassins because assassins do get taken out pretty quick, but they are pretty good just to come in, clean up some damage, go against a tank. And ideally, in majority time, you want to have like double, at least for me, I've double the more fighters than I have actual assassins. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to make some decks and show you, like, break them down, I guess, to make it easier. Okay, so I made these decks. Obviously, this is probably what I would use, I guess, if I was going towards a certain theme. So this is my main deck that I use right now, and I'm going to break it down, obviously, how you can see it, like, on the video right now. But, yeah, so first thing you know is the right corner, we have 3 range units, and, yeah, they're just really good units that boost up a bunch of health, so it makes sense to go towards those. So, yeah, 3 units, 3 range units. Then we have the 1 spell, so the 1 removal that we talked about at the start of the video. Then we also have, in the middle, 4 fighters, and then 2 assassins, that would be Mysterion and Chaos. And then Garrison, the one, essentially 1 tank. And then also Dragon's Head Red could be classed as pretty much anything, a spell, an actual fighter. But yeah, she's just like definitely a must use. So you can see the breakdown, right? You have combo range, one spell, typically one spell. If you're Adventure, you have more. You have a bunch of fighters, fewer commons. You don't have too much commons unless you're going towards Space Powder Bradley deck. And then one guy. And depending on what card it is, Wendy, for example, can actually absorb a lot of damage because she's got Invincibility Shield. So essentially, I kind of have 2 tanks there. And then DAR, once again, she lowers everyone's attack. So she kind of turns into a tank because it takes quite a while to kill her. And yeah, let's go to the next one. Okay, so this is the Adventure deck that I do use. And you can kind of see the breakdown here. We have 2 spells on the right. Obviously, it's Adventure, so you typically have more spells than usual. Then we have the top row. We have the 3 range units, being DAR, Pope Timmy, and the little combo that goes with it. And then, yeah, we have the 1 tank. The bottom row, we have 3 fighters, and then 3 assassins. Now, I should say, because I haven't really said that, Synergy is a thing. So, you don't want to always follow the kind of the rule. Depending on what deck you're using. If you're using like a Parachute Timmy, you want to have more range units. If you're using Space Powder Bradley, you want to have more assassins. If you're using, I guess, Pope Timmy, you want to have more tanky guys because you're bringing back more people. We obviously get a little combo with Stanime Immune, so it's okay to use, I guess, kind of the same amount of fighters and assassins. But ideally, sometimes it gets a bit rough. And I think I've lost games because of it, because sometimes they just die too quick. Next deck, bear in mind, I should say, Sci-Fi is kind of heavily in range units. So when you do pick Sci-Fi, you probably want to throw in a Bradley, what's it, Elven King Bradley every now and again. Anyway, same thing again. We have 1 tank, we have 1 spell, we have the middle row here, on the right, we have 4 fighters, then we have 2 assassins, and then we have 3 or 4 range units because once again we are using Sci-Fi, and Sci-Fi just have a lot more range units than usual. So yeah, Sci-Fi, you're gonna have more range units. Next deck we have here is Fantasy and Mystical. So once again on the right we have 2 spells because why not? It's sometimes good to throw in Power Bind. Now this time we have 2 tanks because once again Garrison's so cheap. He's like, he matters so. I mean, he's a fighter, but he's not a tank this time around. He can be a tank, but this time he's a fighter. So we have a tank, obviously being Mr. Slave, who we are going to bring back with Dark Angel Red. Then we have 2 range units, obviously being Dark Angel Red and Medusa. Right now, Dark Angel Red is level 3, so it's not the greatest thing, but Medusa should be alright by herself. And we are using Road Token, so we can actually substitute a range unit there because he's doing area damage too. We have a couple fires, obviously being Dog Poo, Road Token, and Witch Garrison. And then DAR as well, if you class Nurse, she could be a spell too. And then 3 Assassins because Mystical have really good epics and Underpants are still OP. I guess the last theme, since we are covering each theme, will be superheroes. Superheroes kind of like, I guess, an odd one out. Yeah, just because of the Coon, you want to have loads of characters. So ideally, cheap characters that spawn 2, for example, Mosquito, and then the new little guys that come out around next week, the little Chaos Hamsters, you want to throw them in too. But you can see, even though it's all superhero, we do have obviously 1 card that'll be on combustion because we always need a removal. Okay, and I think that about does it. So to briefly summarize what we talked about for the last 15 minutes is to build a deck, you want to have 1 removal, 1 tank at least, or 1 fighter who's strong enough, so an adult that's strong enough to actually class as an actual tank, a couple fighters, some assassins, and some range units. And then we have, I guess we didn't really talk about as much, but certain cards in the game like Road Token, DAR, Chaos, for example, that just do kind of more from the ground because they can do like AoE damage. But anyway, that's going to wrap up today's video. Just wanted to make the video because if someone does ask in the future, and I guess if it helped, great. If it didn't, I'm sorry you sat through 17 minutes of just rubbish, I guess. But it was a fun video to make. I guess I kept getting asked a question, so I thought I'd just do that today. But I guess remember, it's your game. We all love South Park. We all have our favorite characters. So just use your favorite characters. I guess there's not really that many characters that are really unusable. If you want to use Mimsy, use Mimsy. If you want to use Mysterion, use him. If you want to use City World Guy, build a City World Guy deck. Overall, just have fun. And you don't have to spend money. Just, I guess it'll take time to get them. But when you do, at a competitive level, you're chilling. And yeah, just have fun because that's the best part about this game. Using our favorite characters, seeing them in game. And hopefully, more characters do come out in the future that haven't been in the game. it's always a surprise to see a new character return or to come to South Park for Industrial rather than a returning one like DAR or I guess Red, Bebe for example, Bradley. We are getting some new ones like the Chaos Hamsters. I never thought we would get them in the game, but we are. Who did we recently? We got Seaward guy. He was kind of a big surprise. I didn't think we were ever going to get him in the game. And yeah, I mean, 3 years going strong. Hopefully we get more cards. We should be getting, I would say, from what they're doing, we're going to get one new card every battle pass. So every month we're getting a new card. That's a pretty good thing to follow. And yeah, hopefully it helped, guys. Hopefully it wasn't too long. But yeah, thank you guys for watching and peace.